Hi, we're out on the range today, so please bear with gunfire you hear in the background. Now, recently we did a presentation comparing a few types of compact autoloader in caliber .380 ACP, and that generated a lot of questions, but there were two that came up far more than any other. One was the request that we review the Bersa Thunder .380 and compare it to the Smith & Wesson Walther PPKS. And the answer is yes, we can do that, and yes, we did, and you can watch that video. The second question is a little more complex, and that was many different versions of why would you carry a compact autoloader in caliber .380 ACP when you could carry a compact 9x19 such as, and several models were suggested. One of the models that was suggested was the Sig Sauer Model 365, which I was able to purchase because of donations to the Patreon account. Thank you, everybody. And so today we'll do a review of the 365 and shoot it alongside a couple of other pistols and see if we can shed some light on the idea of why would you carry a compact 380 when you could carry a compact 9 or vice versa. And please bear with me if I say 380 instead of 380 ACP or 9x17, and if I say 9 instead of 9x19, and if I say PPKS or just PPK instead of Smith & Wesson Walther PPKS. Now, in talking about why you would choose a 380 over a compact 9, there's quite a few reasons, and two come up immediately. One is price. Now, I don't like to talk about the specifics of price because it can vary so much from one place to another, but at the stores close to me, guns like this Smith & Wesson Bodyguard or this Ruger LCP2 can be purchased for about $300, while the Sig 365 was $500. That's a lot more, and it's enough more to make the difference between being able to purchase a handgun or not for a lot of people. Another is the matter of size and weight. This Bodyguard is a lot smaller than the 365 and a lot lighter, so not for everybody, but for a lot of people, it will make the difference between program compliance and not. But when you move up to larger 380s that really challenge the notion of compact 380, like the PPKS or this Rock Island Armory Baby Rock, then those factors don't apply so much. Now, these two have a very comparable price tag. And in terms of size, the PPK is about 3/4 of an inch longer, about 1/8 of an inch taller, and the thickness, there isn't enough difference to matter. And the PPK is really slightly heavier. And since we're talking about a 10-shot magazine of 9x19 instead of a 7-shot magazine of 380, well, 10 is more than 7, and we presume the 9 is going to be more powerful. Presume. I'll come back to that. Now, with a gun like this Baby Rock, it is actually a little lighter than the 365, but it's about 1 inch longer, about 3/8 of an inch taller, and again, there isn't enough difference in thickness to matter. And we're talking about a 7-shot magazine instead of 10, and a 380 instead of 9, which we presume to be more powerful. Now, if you look at any ballistics chart, obviously 9 is more powerful than 380, but those numbers are usually generated using a full-size autoloader that will have a 4 to 5 inch barrel. The Sig 365 has a 3-inch barrel. We're going to lose some velocity in that. And so when you compare a 9 with a 3-inch barrel to a 380 with a 3¼ inch barrel, how much, if any, more powerful will the 9 be, and will it be enough more to matter? There's also the matter of recoil. Now, 380 is not very powerful, but in really small guns like the Bodyguard, it can have some snappy recoil. In a gun like the PPKS, which has a significantly bigger grip and is quite a bit heavier, that recoil becomes manageable. 9x19, when fired out of a full-size handgun like this Beretta 92FS, the recoil is very manageable. But in a gun like the 365, which is a lot lighter and has a significantly smaller grip, how manageable will the recoil be, and how will that affect things like follow-up shots and accuracy? So, let's see what we can learn about all those things, and I want to start with the topic of power, so let's go to the chronograph. In discussing how much velocity we're going to lose with the 3-inch barrel of the Sig 365, we first have to establish what kind of velocities are we getting with full-size or other types of compact 9mm pistols. Well, I've got the chronograph set up at 7 yards, and I'm going to start with the Beretta 92FS with a 4 3/4 inch barrel. And the ammunition I'm using is Remington green and white box 9x19 115 grain full metal jacket round nose. 1134, 1127, 1121, 1127, and 1144. Now let's see how that compares with another type of pistol. Now I've got my Smith & Wesson M&P Compact with a 3.5-inch barrel, loaded with the same Remington ammunition. Let's see what kind of velocities we get with this. $11.05, $11.06, $11.11, $10.67, $10.77, and $10.86. Now let's see how those compare to the SIG with its 3-inch barrel. And we have our SIG 365 loaded with the same Remington green and white box 9x19, 115 grain full metal jacket round nose. $10.58, $10.63, $10.24, $10.49, $10.07, and $10.66. Now let's go crunch the numbers. Well, I crunched the numbers and here they are. And of course it comes with a caveat that chronographs don't always agree with each other, and certain environmental factors like elevation and ambient temperature can affect chronograph results. But what we see here with a Remington ammunition with a Beretta 92FS with its 4 3/4-inch barrel, a mean velocity of 1,130. When we go down to the 3.5-inch barrel of the Smith & Wesson M&P, we see a velocity of 1,092, a loss of 38 feet per second. That's not very much, and in some cases within the variation of one round to the next. But when we go to the 3-inch barrel of the SIG 365, we see a mean velocity of 1,044. That's a loss of an additional 48 feet per second, making a total loss of 86 feet per second. And that, in my opinion, is a significant loss in velocity. Of course, we could get slightly different results with different types of ammunition. So let's try a different type of ammunition. Now I've got my 92FS loaded with Hornady critical duty ammunition, which is 9x19 plus P with a 135 grain flex lock projectile, like a ballistic tip. $10.59, $10.61, $10.52, $10.33, and $10.59. Let's try our other guns. And now our M&P Compact. $10.75, $10.59, $10.70, $10.35, and $10.15. Let's see how those compare to the SIG. And now the SIG 365. $9.79, $9.95, $1,001, 993, and 1004. Now let's go crunch those numbers. Well, I crunched the numbers and here they are, and the first thing you can see is that with our critical duty ammunition, even though it's a plus P, we're getting significantly lower velocities than we did with our Remington ammunition. Remember, it's a 135 grain bullet, not 115. But what we see is that with our Beretta, with its 4 3/4 inch barrel, a mean velocity of 1052. When we go to the M&P with the 3.5 inch barrel, it's 1050, a loss of 2 feet per second. But when we lose another 1/2 inch of barrel and go to the SIG 365 with its 3 inch barrel, we get a mean velocity of 994. That's a loss of 56 feet per second. Now 56 feet per second can sometimes be a lot and sometimes it can be a little. If I were comparing different types of 357 Magnum ammunition and I had something with 1500 feet per second and another type with 1444, a loss of 56 feet per second, it wouldn't necessarily be all that much. But when we're talking about velocities down here around 1000 feet per second, a loss of 56 feet per second, in my opinion, is a lot. And it shows us that our 9mm ammunition is losing quite a bit of power when we get to our 3 inch barrel. Which brings up the question, if you're shooting 9x19 ammunition through something like this SIG with a 3 inch barrel, how much more powerful, if any, will it be than a 380 ACP fired out of something like this PPKS with its 3 1/4 inch barrel? Let's see if we can put that to the test. So I've got the SIG 365 loaded with Hornady critical defense ammunition, which is 9x19, 115 grain FTX projectile, like a ballistic tip. $1,067. 1042. 1063, 1050, and 1048. Let's see how that stacks up against the 380. For the 380, I also have critical defense ammunition, but it's a 90 grain FTX projectile. $950. 899, 901, 948, 954, 963, and 956. Let's crunch those numbers. Well, I crunched the numbers, and for the 9x19, I got a mean velocity of 1054. For the 380, it was 938. So the 9 has a velocity of 116 feet per second more. That's a lot more. We also have to remember that the 9 has a projectile weight of 115 grains, as where the 380 was a 90 grain projectile, and that makes a significant difference in power. I computed the energy foot-pounds, and if I did the math right, for the 380 it was 175, and for the 9mm it was 283. That's 108 pounds more. So our chart shows us that as we get a shorter 9mm barrel, when we get down to 3 inches, we are losing a lot of power, but it's still significantly more than a 380, even though in this case the PPKS has a 3 1/4 inch barrel, which isn't much more than 3, but it is more. But let's try one more type of ammo. Now I've got the SIG 365 loaded with Sig Sauer Elite Performance ammunition, which is 9x19, 124 grain jacketed hollow point. $1147. $1182. $1183. $1154. And $1119. Let's see how that compares to 380. And our Sig Sauer Elite Performance 380 ammunition is a 90 grain jacketed hollow point. $909. 954, 949, 1004, 989, 913, and 989. Now let's go crunch those numbers. Well, I crunched the numbers, and with our Sig Sauer Elite Performance ammunition, in the 9 I got a mean velocity of 1,157. In the 380 it was 958. That means the 9 has a mean velocity of 199 feet per second more. Okay, that's a lot more. Also, remember, in this case the 9 had a 124 grain projectile compared to the 380's 90 grain. So if I did my math right in terms of energy foot-pounds, for the 380 it was 183, for the 9 it was 368. That's 185 pounds more. And again, that's a lot more. So what we're seeing is that even though in the short barrel we're losing a lot of velocity in our 9, it's still way ahead of a 380. But we are losing a lot of velocity, and that brings up concerns about expansion threshold. As I've said so many times before, hollow point bullets are velocity based. If you propel them too slowly, they drop below expansion threshold and will give you very little to no expansion. And are we going to face concerns with that with the 3-inch barrel of our SIG 365? Let's see if we can put that to the test. And the way we're going to test hollow point expansion with our SIG 365 is by using the meat target. Now, for those who haven't seen it before, it's leather jacket skin followed by pork chop pectorals, pork ribs, a bag of oranges to simulate lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of t-shirt on the front, 4 layers on the back, and the whole thing followed by the new and improved high-tech fleece bullet stop. And I've got the SIG loaded with Hornady American Gunner 9x19 plus P 124 grain XTP projectile, a jacketed hollow point. So let's shoot from 7 yards and see what kind of expansion we get. Now this is the point where I have to take a minute to point out that yes, I do wear eye protection when shooting the meat target. I just usually take the glasses off before I get back on camera. That having been said, we see there's minimal damage to our pork chop pectorals. All 4 of the projectiles went completely through the target, doing moderate amount of damage, and all 4 were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target or by the first layer of fleece. But let me show you a close-up of what these hollow points look like. And here they are. So you can see the expansion with our American Gunner ammunition is there, but it's mediocre. Now we've got a new meat target set up, and again I'll shoot from 7 yards, but this time I'm loaded with Remington Golden Saber 9x19 plus P, 124 grain jacketed hollow point. Now again, all 4 shots achieved 100% penetration, and all 4 were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. But this time I can see significantly more damage to the meat target, especially in the sense that our orange lung tissue, or in this case grapefruit lung tissue, was just thrashed. Now let me show you a close-up of these projectiles. Here's all 4 of our projectiles, and as is typical with Golden Saber ammunition, all 4 lost their jackets. But these jackets show a lot of expansion, and the damage to the meat target was commensurate with that expansion. Now let's try another type of ammunition. I've got a new meat target set up, and now I have the SIG 365 loaded with Hornady Critical Defense ammunition, which is 9x19 standard pressure, 115 grain FTX projectile, like a ballistic tip. Let's see what kind of results we get with this. With the critical defense ammunition, again we see some good damage to our meat target, especially a lot of damage to our orange and grapefruit lung tissue. In this case, 3 of the 4 projectiles were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target, and 1 was stopped by the ribs on the back. Let me show you a close-up of what these projectiles look like. And we can see that our FTX projectiles had very consistent, very good expansion. Okay, one more type of ammunition. This is Sig Sauer Elite Performance 9x19 124 grain V-crown jacketed hollow point. Let's see how this does from 7 yards. And again, we see that all 4 rounds achieved 100% penetration. All 4 rounds were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target and did quite a bit of damage to the target. Now, let me show you a close-up of these rounds. And we see that our Sig Sauer Elite Performance V-Crown hollow points seem to have delivered some fairly good expansion. Up till now, we've spent a lot of time with concerns like, will 9x19 really be more powerful than a 380 ACP in this short-barreled handgun, and will we really get sufficient hollow point expansion? But we haven't discussed very much about the performance of the Sig Sauer 365. So let's get to that, and I want to start with accuracy. I've got the pistol loaded with Remington green and white box 9x19 115 grain full metal jacket round nose, and I'll shoot this target from 15 yards, and let's see what kind of group I can hold. This is a small handgun, but it's got enough of a grip that I can get a grip on it, and very big high visibility sights. The result being that our slow fire accuracy is not too bad. But what about trying to shoot fast? Let's put that to the test. Now I've got 2 targets set up, and I'll fire alternating left, right, and I'll shoot as fast as I think I can hit them. And this time I'll shoot from 10 yards. So let's see how we do. And let's take a closer look at the target. And you can see that our groups aren't all that good. Although in slow fire I was doing pretty well, this small grip was a little bit difficult to hold on to when trying to shoot fast. But let me put up a couple new targets and I'll try this drill again and see if I can do any better. Now when you buy this pistol, it comes with 2 10-shot magazines. One has just a little bit more of a foot on it than the other one does, and although the difference in size is minute, I can feel the difference when I'm shooting the pistol. So let's try this drill again. Now let's take a closer look at the targets. So we see in our rapid fire drill, switching back and forth from one target to the other, our groups have improved, but they're still not necessarily all that good. But this does tell me that given enough time and practice, this is a pistol that can be fired fairly quickly and fairly accurately. Did you notice the second time I did that drill that I bobbled the magazine change a little bit? There's a couple of things going on there. One, it's difficult for me to reach the mag release button on this pistol. I have to change my grip on it, and then when I do, the magazine can still get stuck in there because I got to make sure I get my fingers out of the way so it can come out of the gun. That's due in part to the small grip and because there's a foot on this magazine. So let's try something that might help. This is the Sig Sauer 12-shot magazine. Now it is made by Sig, but it's sold separately from the pistol. With 2 more rounds in it, it makes the magazine longer, so there's a much more pronounced foot, which does change the grip, so it does fit my hand a little better. However, it makes the overall dimensions of the pistol bigger. So in terms of our mag change, is this going to help the problem or exacerbate it? Let's put that to the test. Not bad at all. Let's try that again. And again, we're going from the 12 to the 10-shot mag. Yeah, that works, but only if I really remember to get my fingers out of the way when I'm ejecting that magazine. A couple more things to add about the SIG 365. When you buy this pistol, it comes equipped with tritium illuminated sights, and they are very bright and very easy to see in the dark. Also, earlier I said it has two 10-shot magazines. Now, I have fairly good grip strength, but these magazine springs are so stiff that it was all I could do to get that 10th round in there. Letting them sit fully loaded for 10 days alleviated the problem a little bit, but still these magazine springs are fairly stiff. Also, I have to point out that in our testing process, I've put over 200 rounds through this SIG, and so far the number of malfunctions I've had has been 0, and that's a real plus. So that having been said, what's our takeaway from all of this? Well, we were concerned about how much power we'd lose from our 9x19 ammunition when we put it in only a 3-inch barrel, and we saw we do lose power, but even at that, it's significantly more powerful than a comparable size 380. We were also concerned about, with our loss of velocity going below expansion threshold for hollow point bullets, well, the performance of that American gunner ammunition seemed to be mediocre, but other than that, our hollow point expansion looked really good with the other types of ammo I used. And so finding a 9x19 round that's going to give you sufficient hollow point expansion shouldn't be too hard to do. But that having been said, there's one other thing I had to discuss about the way the SIG 365 works. In the world of compact, subcompact, or what some people would call pocket guns, there's a concern I have about the striker action configuration of the SIG. When you have a compact double action revolver, very few double action revolvers have a manual safety that you disengage. Your safety is a straight trigger finger, and the fact that it requires a very long, deliberate trigger pull to get it to go off. On full-time double action autoloaders like the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, it has a manual safety, but really your safety is a straight trigger finger and the fact that it requires a long, deliberate pull to discharge the pistol. On double to single action autoloaders like this PPKS, on your first shot it's a double action trigger pull. Then your action cycles and it cocks your hammer and all subsequent shots are short. Now, although it has a trigger deactivator, your main safety is, for your first shot, it requires a long, deliberate trigger pull. On striker action pistols like this first generation Glock, there is a little lever on the trigger that's supposed to act as a safety, but your main safety is straight trigger finger and that it takes a fairly long, fairly deliberate trigger pull to get it to go off. Now, it is shorter and requires less pressure than a double action revolver, and that helps a lot of people shoot these more accurately than they can double action revolvers or double to single action autoloaders. But there's still a relatively long trigger pull on these first generation guns. Subsequent generations of Glock still have a striker action trigger pull, but it's a little shorter and crisper than this one. And that brings us to the SIG 365. This is a striker action trigger pull. And although it does have some slop in it, once you take that slop out, your trigger pull is really short and really crisp. I've fired single action autoloaders that don't have as good a trigger pull as this. And the concern is, when you're talking about pocket guns, or just putting a pistol in your pocket, I would carry something like this double action revolver or the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard in my coat pocket or in my pants pocket, and I would not in the least bit be concerned about the trigger being inadvertently pulled while in my pocket. I would not carry this SIG 365 unless it was in the appropriate holster that covers that trigger guard. So although it is a good pistol and it is compact, it is not what I would consider a true pocket gun. And that is my one concern about this particular pistol. Other than that, I'd consider it outstanding. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the SIG Sauer 365 video.